Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds on this day of all days, the end of the world. Hi there, welcome, joining us live here on Saturday. If it's your first time, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. You might be asking, what in the world is this show? This is a live stream that we do here where we play Star Trek New Worlds is a turn-based strategy game whereby we play the game of Federation Empire as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau in a 4X fashion. And the map that you will see later is produced by the magic of Vassal. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about some very exciting things. One is the fall of the Klingon Empire. Two, the backstabbery of not only the Carnivon, but the Reman and ISC alliance. And one major announcement, one surprise outcome at the end of the live stream. So, some very exciting things that will be coming up. But before we jump in too far, let's hit you right now with the exciting, delighting galactic news. Till the dogs come home. Terra has gone to the dogs. In a surprise action, a Carnivon fleet raced to the Sol system and captured the former capital of the Federation. Gorn forces were out of place due to their ongoing war with the Klingon Empire. In order to prevent further Gorn reinforcements from returning, the Carnivon fleet also captured the wormhole in Tango 36. That gave direct access to the region from Gorn space. Will this mean the liberation of Earth? Is dog still man's best friend? With friends like these, adding to the Gorn's woes, Reman and ISC forces also began to move against the Gorn in the northern reaches. The Reman launched an attack on Gorn positions at the edge of Lyran space, and the ISC captured a colony of Kobol. Are the Carnivons in cahoots with the Remans and ISC? Is the old Four Powers Alliance back in effect? Experts believe we may be seeing the final bloody stage of this galactic war. A web of a different kind. A massive space tarantula has continued its rampage in ISC space. This time it attacked and destroyed an ISC cruiser hosting a diplomatic team at the world of Iron Web. Reports are coming in that the creature is setting up some kind of nest at the world and maybe on the verge of creating more of its kind. The irony of a massive spider conquering a world of Tholians called Iron Web is not lost on us or our readers. Touché, Space Tarantula, touché. A whole new homeworld? In the most shocking news of the month, Klin Shai has fallen. Klingon forces fighting against their old foes, the Romulans, were out of position to prevent a Tholian fleet from reaching their homeworld, largely unopposed. Joint Task Force Alpha, a training squadron of old technology ships, fought a rear guard action to buy time for evacuation of all essential government personnel and the scuttling of the shipyards. The bulk of the Klingon fleet has withdrawn to the north to protect the new temporary capital, world of Grey Peak, now designated Nova Klin Shai. Will the Klingons be able to rally and retake their former home, or is this the end for the once mighty Empire? And that is your galactic news. Oh, yes, I know. That's there is a lot of potential excitement and delightment coming in from that particular piece of news. But before we jump in too far into what we're talking about, let's quickly join into the chat and say hello. There is the Gorn. Smitty is in the house. Hey-o, Gorns are here. Eugene, our latest and greatest, our persistent and consistent press agent of the channel. That's right. Lots and lots of events to discuss this week. Daniel, our GM, Pew Pew, is in the house. You Can't Be Petty is here. And George Forknell, bam, in full effect and stereo sound, is going to be a really, really big show. Lots to discuss after the show on Discord. Yes, so for those of you who don't already know, on our Discord channel, we rally, we chat, we camaraderise. Wow, I got a gift for those weird words. Anyways, we jump into the Discord channel after the show and discuss various things. And at the end of this broadcast, I will share with you the big pivotal thing or big news that we'll be discussing in the Discord channel after this show. But George is right. If you want to be like George and the rest of our Discord community, then you can be like Pinecone33, 333, I should say, who has dethroned Dr. Death as the latest subscriber to the channel. Thank you so much. One thing I noted, by the way, when it comes to that little notification is that some folks, and I hadn't realized this before, you don't make your subscriptions public or you can't see what you're subscribed to. So even though our subscriber numbers might have gone up, which they have over the past week, so thank you so much for that, some of those subscribers don't share the fact they're subscribed to various channels, which is fine, except that it just doesn't populate in that little widget there that you see with Pinecone 333. So while we might have gained a couple of subscribers, they didn't dethrone Dr. Death 43 because they weren't sharing their subscription status. So thank you, Pinecone, for joining us here as part of the community. And if you would like to join us on Discord, then that QR code in between me and the chat, or that link over there at coffee.com/New World. So you head over there and you hit the coffee and Discord tier of our support, and you can join us on Discord and partake in our chit chat. So with that said, let's jump into the map to talk about some of the big things that have happened this turn. All right, as we always do, let's recap or get a sounding of where we are when it comes to EP and fleet cap. Let's start with the EP. You can see here that the Carnivon have swelled to 65. They're all working out over there at the the dog pound. 65 EP is where the Carnivon are at today. The Gorn also growing by leaps and bounds, although they have perhaps taken a slight hit when it came to the former Federation homeworld. They are at 75. The ISC, not to be outdone, at 71, although that might be a little misleading considering how many resources they have easy access to. The Klingons, how the mighty have fallen. Once in the 90s with EP, not handful of turns ago, more like 20. They have now fallen to 41 as their EP, and of course their capital has fallen with their shipyards. Wow, that has been a catastrophic hit. The Romulans are at 86, still the rulers of the roost when it comes to their total EP. The Romulans coming back with a total of 60 EP. Notice how the initiative has switched now. The Klingons go first, and the Tholians at the number 2 economic spot at a total of 85. But again, a little misleading, as we'll see here in a moment. Let's go to fleet cap, talking about the size of your fleet. The Carnivon are floating 108 ships out and about in the space that we see, with 454 attack factor, 552 defense. The Gorn still growing their fleet by leaps and bounds, are at a total of a 171 with 532 attack factors, 752 defense. The ISC, also with a massive fleet at 189 ships, have a total attack factor of 723, oh my goodness gracious, and 892 defense. The Klingons, shrinking though they may be, still have 87 ships in their fleet, 309 attack factor, 353 defense. Interesting to note, their fleet cap is 446, like that's almost 100-point difference, indicating, whoa, ladies and gentlemen, a coffee has been fired. In case you didn't realize, yes, you can fire a coffee our way. The support, the way that you can keep us motivated, stimulated, and of course, caffeinated on the show. It looks like the Juggernauts have fired coffee our way. Cheers to our AI overlords. That may be a strangely ironic statement in a couple of years, but regardless, cheers. Oh, yeah. All right, so that is 33% to our goal of 1, 2, 3 coffees for this broadcast. We'll revisit that in a moment. All right, back into the fleet. Oh, what do we got? So we got the Klingons at 87 with their 307, 353 with a lot of cripples, hence the difference between their 353 defense and 446 fleet cap. Let's roll on to, as I'm going down the list here, the Romulans at 198 total ships with 762 attack factors, 795 defense, fleet cap of 848. The Romulans now at 76 ships in their fleet, strangely, still below the total attack factor of the Klingons despite the Klingon collapse. They have 391 defense, 465 fleet cap. So bigger fleet cap than the Klingons, certainly. The Tholians have cracked 200, the first faction to have over 200 ships in the fleet. They have 599 total attack factors, 868 defense with a fleet cap of 958. Goodness gracious me. Well, that is quite the dynamic. Let's start at the top of the map where we will talk about the Romulan advance on Gorn forces. So an interesting combination of dynamics here. In case you forgot, the Romulans and the ISC have conducted combined operations against the Tholians. We talked about that in previous live streams, and the sort of 24 plus bases destroyed by the ISC assault. The tactics of the Klingons taken to a whole nother level, executed better than I did in the past. So destroying a massive amount of infrastructure on the Tholian front. And of course, with the Gorns and the Tholians being allies and coordinating their various activities against, the Klingons, the Romulans and the ISC have combined their operations against both of these factions. Today, or this was the first turn where the Romulans officially attacked the Gorn, same with the ISC, and this is what happened. So right here in this hex where you can see Pegasus fleet, this was Pegasus and Triton. There was a YDK here with a large Gorn contingent. This Gorn contingent was pepper potting or attacking the Lyran pocket here, causing damage over time. But the Romulans have advanced their various ships towards the AA wormhole that you can see right here. Pegasus fleet and, Triton fleet have destroyed not only the base, but have taken this resource. Let's take a look at what's remaining in those fleets. Triton fleet, here we are. And Pegasus, where are you? There we are. All right, so once the battles have been completed, this is what we got. We still have a total of 10 Maulers, unbelievable ships. 10 Maulers in a formation. We have KRMs, which is basically the the Romulan equivalent of the D6. So the KRM is 6-7 cruiser, 7 K4Ms. These are their equivalent of the E4M for the Klingons. We have two K7 RMs, which are like a D7 for the Klingons. 2 more Maulers, making their total 12. A couple of K5Ms, which are like the F5M for the Klingons, and 6 uncrippled K4M. So you combine that with the 7, that's a total of 13 super frigates, with 2 of them, 2 additional ones crippled. And of course, let's not forget we have an admiral in the fleet, meaning they have a +1 command factor, a Razor team, and a M-era tug. So those things, that combination of ships, certainly enough to be able to move down and cause chaos on the Gorn front, but also Law Fleet moving up from this area here where obviously this large contingent of ISC forces came through the wormhole, moved up, destroying a whole bunch of Tholian infrastructure, and Law Fleet made its way up here to take Kobol. All right, let's take a look at Law Fleet and see what they have on the go. Law Fleet, you can see here, where is Law? Law and Order right here in the middle. You got 2 CAMs, 2 CLGMs, which are their light commando cruisers. There's a DD and a total of 3 crippled frigates here, a scout and a marshal team. So certainly not a crazy amount of ships, but enough certainly to take that planet. So with those fleets sort of in position, what do we have here at the Alpha wormhole? We have Hammer, Mobile, and Anvil fleet, and a YDK. Let's take a look at the Gorn named fleets and see what they've got. All right, so Mobile fleet. So it looks like the majority of the Gorn contingent has remained in place. So Mobile fleet, for example, is a total of 4 cruisers, 5 light cruisers, 13 destroyers, 2 YDDs, 1 crippled, 1 not, a scout, and a prime team. Hammer fleet, which again is in the same hex, is an additional 4 cruisers. Looks like a crippled CLM, another 14, so 14 plus the 13, that's 27 DDMs and another scout. So they still have 8 cruisers, 5 light cruisers, and 27 destroyers, which are essentially their chaff unit. Very, very potent combination of ships. And on top of that, they also have Anvil fleet. Anvil fleet, for all intents and purposes, is a token fleet of outdated W ships that really can't do much other than perhaps be a slight obstacle for the odd photon torpedo or something along those lines. All right. So we can see that fleet on that YDK, based on the current sort of disposition of ships, that certainly seems like enough of a force to be able to hold that wormhole, at least in the short term, versus Pegasus fleet and Law fleet. However, one of the things that was discussed, and we'll perhaps have a greater, more in-depth discussion about the use of maulers, is the fact that there are 12 maulers in that fleet from the Romulans. So we'll talk about maulers a little bit later, but maulers, there are some constraints around maulers in the sense of how you can use them and how those attack factors essentially can factor into your battle line. And so based on the number of ships involved, while certainly the maulers are a deadly weapon, I don't know that Pegasus fleet and Triton fleet, even with Law fleet, could potentially take mobile fleet when it's all said and done. But we'll have to see. We will have to see. All right, as we scroll down here, let's take a look at what the ISC have done. Now, as we noted before, the ISC had annihilated this incredible void of space, which had been heavily populated with ISC bases and infrastructure. Tholian bases and infrastructure. The ISC had effectively come in here and annihilated over 24 different bases, and this turn annihilated a few more. In the past 3 turns, the ISC have destroyed, captured, or taken a total of 30 different supply nodes. And I say 30 because they had captured some planets. They've since lost some of those planets, but they have captured some planets that just added to the tally. This last turn, 3 bases were destroyed, 2 in between, sort of the gulf between this November wormhole and the Whiskey wormhole here. There was a YDK and a Bats, and another YDK in the southern region here had been eliminated as well. So additional 3 bases destroyed, and of course with these planets. So 3 turns, almost 30, or very close to 30, total supply nodes, which is bases and planets, captured or destroyed. Unbelievable amounts of sort of accomplishment when it comes to the ISC. But not to be outdone, let's keep on the Gorn here. The Topaz fleet from the Carnivon had snuck in the back end here and taken the Sol system. So if you do remember, a couple turns ago, the Topaz fleet had been up here near Emerald fleet, and last turn had taken its 6 movement and gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down to here. Actually, I believe it had gone to November 10. And then from November 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, gone into the Sol system. So in 2 moves, they were able to move in such a way to be able to take the Sol system. And of course, Topaz is not the smallest fleet in the world. Topaz fleet, let's look at it now. It has 3 cruisers and a total of 6 light cruisers, supported by 11 frigates, 1 crippled, and a scout with a couple prime teams. So that is certainly more than enough to be able to take the Sol system, which had, I think, 1 ship defending it, and more than enough to be able to clobber all the Y ships that are in the surrounding area here. Note that 5th Fleet, which is the only substantive fleet in this area, Gorn 5th Fleet, is the only fleet that could potentially oppose Topaz Fleet. It has 9 destroyers. These are all M ships. 9 destroyers, 2 light cruisers, 3 cruisers, and a YDN. So because of the YDN, assuming they're keeping the YDN in the formation, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the maximum the YDN can travel. It's at least 2 turns from being able to hit Sol. So interesting to note. That being said, it's a very ambitious maneuver that the Carnivons have engaged in, taking that planet. Let's scroll down here, and you can see on the on this part of the map, we've got the massive fleet that left from this wormhole, which again goes straight into Carnarvon space. They captured, destroying the Tholian ships that were in the way. They captured the Tango 36 wormhole, which was the supply connection from the Gorn home system into the Balkans, which means the Gorn faction in the Balkans is completely isolated, which does a couple things. One, if they are isolated, only the EPs in that Balkan area can be used to support the ships in that Balkan area. And if they're out of supply, that could cause an issue. Now, that being said, let's not get overly excited. One EP can support up to 5 ships, and I don't believe there's, let's just do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 EP they're currently collecting there, which means they've got 45 ships that they can support. And I think they've got less than 45 ships in this area. So I think they're just fine. However, one thing to note, that also includes the ships on the other side of this wormhole, because those ships would be drawing supply from this area. So interesting to think about as they go forward. So as we saw here, we've got a fleet of Carnarvon ships that have obstructed the wormhole. We still got home fleet, Carnarvon home fleet, which is, let's pull it up here, Carnarvon home fleet. Not a small fleet with 2 YDNs, 2 CCs, 6 CAs, 2 destroyers. How many? Just 2 frigates. Okay, 2 frigates and a couple drone bombardment cruisers. So not nothing. And sitting there on the Juliet wormhole, with the Gorn having exactly not a small fleet either. We've got Vengeance fleet and the Alliance. So the Ally Fleet 7 there, that is a like a museum fleet. They're not effectively any good at anything. But let's look up Vengeance fleet here real quick for the Gorn. Vengeance fleet, we have 3 CAs plus the 2 that were already there. That means they have a total of 5 CAs. They have a command cruiser as well, or not a command cruiser, a commando cruiser, Com-M, and a CLM here, as well as a total of 23 destroyers, plus a couple cripples, which they can certainly repair at the YDK, and a scout. So this fleet is certainly not small and could potentially move to attack the Juliet wormhole if they were so inclined. So very interesting to look at that. There's also the Tholian 101st Battle Squadron, which if we pull that up real quick, not a lot here, but we have a cruiser, destroyer, patrol craft, and then a bunch of cripples that are there. So again, all being equal, the Carnarvons have executed some exceptional activity here to be able to take resources. Looks like the Romulans have taken a couple back, but are putting the pressure on the Gorn, certainly. All right, let's take a quick look at the Tholians. Now, the Tholians, this is the big sort of thing that's happened with the Tholians. Now, of course, as we just take a quick look at their territory, let's take away the ships real quick, and you can see the void, like the damage that has been done here. If we just take a quick look at the supply menu for the Tholians, supply, and we'll set supply at supply 5. That's their supply. Well, I'll show you supply 2 just to illustrate the void that's been created. Look at that pocket. That pocket of that used to be filled with bases and supply nodes that led right up to the Victor column here, but it's been absolutely decimated. The only reason they have supply is because of these 2 planets that they have sort of retaken and repopulated. But you can see this huge void or cavity that's been created here. And if we make some changes to the supply again, so we can get their supply up to 5, and they could potentially have 6. Look at the reach. They can't even reach the resources they have in the top here, which is crazy. Unbelievable. I say that in the sense of where they were before and where they are now. It's just such a shift when it comes to that. But if we want to talk about shifts, oh my goodness, we'll get to the Klingons in a second here. But we have the November wormhole. So the Tholians have done a concerted effort to be able to secure their wormholes. They took a large fleet of ships here. We've got second and home fleet. They went through the November wormhole to be able to try and take the other side. Basically do to the Remans and the ISC what they did to the Tholians. Now, apparently, I have been informed, although I have been not party to the specifics of the battle, they attempted to go through the wormhole and they were rebuffed soundly. Now, because of the composition of their fleet, they just weren't able to generate enough attack factor in any one particular round and just took a bunch of damage. So let's take a look at Tholian home and second fleet. So, whoops, that's the reserve. That's not the right one. Second fleet and home. There we are. Okay, so there's home fleet and second fleet. So there's a lot there, obviously. But you can see here there's a collection of 26 patrol craft that have been crippled and 2 DDs. Now, this is keeping in mind as they transit through a wormhole. And we've talked about transit battles when going through a wormhole before. There's only a certain number of ships you can bring through the wormhole at any one time. And apparently the orders were to bring patrol craft through specifically, and they were getting crippled every single round or destroyed every single round. Very interesting to note. Now, they were fighting up against this collection of ships here. So there was a YDK in the Hex, and there was also, we've got a collection here of Athena, Pacific, and Third Fleet. So let's pull up Reman Athena. You can see that. Reman Pacifica Fleet, where are you? And the ISC, what was it, Third Fleet? Third Fleet. ISC Third Fleet. Okay. So these were the surviving ships that faced off against the Tholians. So we can see here we have a number of crippled ships. The Remans, of course, use their Y ships as complete chaff because they're outdated. And to be fair with the Reman player, everything is chaff. So we have a total of 12 K4 pluses. These are the equivalent of the F4, a Y-air destroyer, that were crippled in this fight. We also have looks like another 3 of them, so a total of 15 crippled F4s, KF4s. We have 2 KE2s that have been crippled, 2 KD4 pluses. These are essentially the equivalent of the D4 for the Klingons, and then a command cruiser that was also crippled. We have a cruiser on the ISC side, M cruiser, and a frigate that have also been crippled. And as I showed you before, they have held soundly this wormhole. So essentially, this has become a bit of a standoff whereby, each side of the wormhole has secured their wormhole enough to be able to prevent the other from coming through. There have been 2 turns where the Remans and the ISC have attempted to come through and do something with the November wormhole and have been unable to sort of establish and maintain their beachhead. On this side, the Tholians have done an excellent job of pushing them back, partly probably because it's so close to their homeworld here that they can, build and move everything to deal with it. But effectively, they have been able to push the Reman and ISC back through. However, have not been able to push all the way through and get into ISC and Reman space. Now, this little guy up here, that's the Tango wormhole. And that takes us to, wait for it now. Oh, damn. Right here. Here's the Tango wormhole. That is where the Gorn and the Tholians came through. Now, the Tholians and the Gorn combined conducted a series of operations to destroy a bunch of bases I had in this area. And of course, as I mentioned in our last live stream, the Tholians had a path to be able to hit my homeworld this turn. There was nothing I could do to stop them. There was a fleet there to sort of impede what they were doing, but really couldn't stop them. That was Joint Task Force Alpha. And exactly what I forecast would happen, which is that First Fleet rolled in and absolutely annihilated everything. Now, to give you a sense of what they brought to the fight, this is what survived, and granted there wasn't much of a fight, but they had a cruiser, 14 destroyers, 26 patrol craft, 3 scouts, and of course 2 patrol craft were crippled. So total of 28 patrol craft, 14 destroyers, and a cruiser. Now there were some other ships in that formation, I believe, but regardless, the number of ships, if you think about it, that's 28 plus 14, so 38, 42, 43, and 3 more. So 46 ships versus my homeworld. And of course, my homeworld, as we have been very critical, had virtually nothing defending it, except for this Joint Task Force Alpha, which was nothing. Let's just show you what Task Force Alpha was. So it got beaten up, but it was like a command cruiser, a cruiser from the Y era, an F5M, a bunch of F4s, E4M, and crippled E4M. So in the fight, these 2 ships got crippled. This one was already crippled, and they had to retreat. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I had 9 ships defending against 46. So there was no way I was going to win that fight. And away we go. The Klingon capital has fallen. Their economy has been crippled. You can see the Romulans here are also positioned, ready to jump in, and of course ravage what's left of the carcass that is the Klingons. And of course the Gorn doing their piece as well, taking a couple of EP on the go as they roll. So, and as you can see, there's these huge stacks of ships. The Klingons moved all their cripples, because we had a whole bunch, moving them away and out of the area to be able to get to points where they could provide, they could get repaired and provide supply. And yeah, that's basically what's going on. The new homeworld is here in, oh, you put it in Gray Peak. I thought I was putting it in QQ41. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. But regardless, the new capital, as it is right here, moved to Gray Peak, which is still pretty damn close to the Romulans, and yeah, we'll see how that all goes. So anyway, the Klingons have officially fallen, and based on the inability to build new ships, although there is the ability to repair ships, I have a feeling that as we progress, there will be a significant challenge in being able to repel the Tholians, the Gorn, and the Romulans concurrently as they continue their push and assault onto the Klingons. So, exciting stuff. Let's double check the location of your new capital, Daniel says. All right. Let's see here. So we got the Tholians. We've talked about the Gorn. Now remember, the Gorn AA wormhole is this guy in the top corner here. And that AA wormhole shows up right here where Mobile Fleet is. And that's the sort of the vulnerability. If the Remans and the IC can break through the AA wormhole, they've got a straight line to the Gorn capital right there. And the same thing here. This is the only sort of pillar of strength for the Gorn that is stopping the Carnivon from rushing in and doing the same thing. Of course, the Carnivon need to be careful, because if the Romulans are reorganizing their fleets to be able to counter Carnivon activity, well, that could cause some interesting issues and dilemmas as well. However, based on the fact that I don't believe that the Romulans have the supply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Well, this base provides supply to the wormhole, so they could attack and hit that spot. But the Carnivon have done such an excellent job of annihilating a bunch of the supply network for the Romulans that their ability to logistically support an attack into this area will be significantly compromised. Okay, so we've talked about the Lyran pocket, the movement of the Carnivon into the Gorn space, the movement of the Remans and the ISC against the Gorn. We've talked about the Tholians and their recent moves through the Tango wormhole, taking the Klingon capital, their defense of the November wormhole. Those are the key focuses, or key focal points. We've talked about the Gorn and their defense, or their potential defense, of the Carnivon and, of course, the Reman ISC attack. Now let's talk about the Romulans real quick. So the Romulans, ravaged and certainly beaten by their war with the Klingons and recent backstabbery from the Carnivons, they are still moving forward and taking territory from the Klingons on 2 different fronts. We have FF44, the planet of Nippon, which has been taken by Romulan forces. You can see here, if it would be nice. There we are. We've got Battlehawks, 2 of them. A Tug, which is the YFB. King Eagle, Pelican Eagle, Snipe B, which is a frigate and a scout. Then we've also got 7th Legion and Home Fleet. Let's pull those up. Romulan Legion number 7, which is this one, which is just a War Eagle, so nothing too crazy. And then Home Fleet, Romulan Home Fleet, which is basically the Dreadnoughts. So you have a bunch of Dreadnoughts, 4 of them, 2 Pelican Eagles, 1 in the Home Fleet, 1 just stacked on the Hex, a War Eagle, 2 Battlehawks, a Tug, King Eagle, Snipe B, and another Scout. So we've got a reasonable collection of ships there, and certainly more than enough to be able to block any counterattack by the Klingons, because the Klingons have, squat in that area. Interesting. Right, so the Romulans are doing well moving into this area and pushing into the Klingons. And then, of course, we'll slide into the Carnarvon territory. You can see Carnarvon territory, they've got a stack of cripples they are repairing. Oh, my head's in the way. Pardon me. Let's slide me over to the other side. There we are. So we've got a stack of cripples here that are being repaired at the the Carnarvon homeworld. We've got a rather sparsely populated area of space, which is fine considering they've got no direct threat other than through the Juliet wormhole. And you've got the odd little ship here and there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Odd little ships. The stack is on the homeworld getting repaired. You can see a YDK is being established on the wormhole to plug that hole. And then the rest of the Carnarvon fleet, as we had mentioned before, 108 ships, is in a combination of on the Juliet wormhole, on the Hotel wormhole, and of course in Topaz fleet in Lima 15. There's of course Emerald fleet up here, which just for S&Gs, let's take a look at what it is. Now you can see here, this is the old Hydran YDN from way back when. And then we've got a bunch of drone bombardment cruisers, 8 of them, and a light cruiser. But they're effectively safe because the threat that they were facing was from the Gorn, which have been thoroughly pummeled by the Remans. And so now the only thing they would have to worry about is the Lyrans. And of course, the Lyrans are not in a position to be able to really push out against the Carnarvon. They have a decent fleet here. Look at this. 7 frigates, 4 destroyers, all M, a scout, 2 CLMs, 2 CAMs, nice. A heavy destroyer, heavy dreadnought from the Y era, a command cruiser. Look at that, 9-8, very nice, and a couple prime teams. So their fleet is building. Certainly, they could do some stuff there. That is without a doubt. That's looking good, and that's where we're at. So let's slide back into the chat and discuss. All right. So certainly, are you not entertained? Yes, George. Let's if you reach this point in the video, which is about the 40-minute mark, and you have not hit the thumbs up button, what are you thinking? Please feel free to hit the thumbs up and get us going with the tickling the algorithm in just the right way. But let's do 2 things right now. We're going to talk about the macro strategy about what's going on in the game, and I will lead us into the major announcement that's coming at the end. Okay, here we go. So let's talk about the macro strategy here. We've got a total collapse of the Klingon Empire, and we'll talk about why that is. The overextension, maybe, of the Gorn in the sense that they have pushed themselves, of course, through the Balkans into Klingon space, and with the maneuver that the Carnarvons have executed right now, they've caught them and cut off their supply, in that they are unable to field new ships into that area. Now, the Carnarvons also are going to have a little bit of a challenge there. However, the Carnarvons, between the chain of wormholes that they have the ability to be able to get ships in there very quickly. From an operational movement perspective, like 6 in operational movement, that's with M ships, you can move 6 hexes in 1 turn. So based on that, they can go from their homeworld through the wormhole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can be on the wormhole ready to go through and attack in one operational movement phase. Once they move those ships that are currently on the wormhole, which are Gorn ships, and there's just a bunch of little crippled ships, once they move them off that, and keeping in mind the Carnivon have initiative over the Gorn, then they can strat move ships to the Sol system, which means that they can now forward deploy ships in their turn, new builds, directly into the Balkans, which is the capability the Gorns had until the Carnivon cut it off. So all that means is just logistically, the Carnivons are in a very advantageous position and can really cause some pain for the Gorn. But of course, the Gorn are well supplied and supported by the Tholians. The Tholians are just south of the Balkans, and of course in Klingon territory, and they have a robust network there to be able to provide them supply. But of course, the Tholians have their own trouble to deal with, which is the ISC and the Remans, which have caused so much of a disturbance, a disruption to their system, that even though they have 86 economy, or was it 82 economy, they have lost access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've lost access to 10 EP within that network. So functionally, they only have, instead of 82, they have 72. But it doesn't affect their initiative, because the initiative is based on the resources you technically own, not what you have access to into your economy. So the ISC and the Remans are playing a fun little game with the Tholians, keeping them with the later initiative and taking advantage of that initiative and causing them all sorts of angst and dilemmas. The Romulans, of course, after having fought a massive war, now 14 turns deep with the Klingons, must be feeling economic pain. I can share with you in a moment where the Klingons are on that. And so they must be feeling economic pain, and they are in a position now to be able to start to reap the benefits of that, in the sense that if we assume that the Klingons are at a point where they are all but ready to fall apart because of the amount of pressure that's been applied to them, the Romulans, if they're able to surge into Klingon space, will be able to basically gobble up all the leftovers of what the Klingons are there. Now, the Tholians could do the same thing, and of course the Gorn, but the Romulans are best positioned to be able to take advantage of that. So the Romulans could go from being one of the sort of the smallest economies in the game to, let's say, within 5 turns, maybe not 5 turns, but let's say within 10 turns, they could be one of the biggest economies in the game if they were to be successful in that. Now, that being said, the Klingons, while they have been certainly bludgeoned, are not completely out. There is a large fleet of very potent ships, most of them crippled, that are still available to the Klingons. And most, strangely enough, most of the YDKs and sort of repair infrastructure for the Klingons is on the eastern side of their empire, close to the Carnivons, because, ironically, all those YDKs were built to support the attack on the Carnivons when that happened, like 30 turns ago. And so those YDKs are still there, and so a lot of the ships have moved to those YDKs to get repaired and bring more combat capability back from the Klingon side. So the Klingons have still ships to use. They have enough EP to be able to repair, because again, Klingon ships are relatively cheap to repair compared to the other factions, and they have initiative now. So the dynamic may change in that respect as they move forward. So big picture wise, while the fall of the Klingon Empire is a huge blow to the Four Powers Alliance, there is Four Powers being the ISC, the Reman, the Carnivon, and the Klingons, though technically not in alliance right now, very obviously coordinating and colluding in order to be able to attack the Three Powers Alliance of the Gorn, Tholians, and the associated Romulans. The game is certainly not over by any means, but let's not lie, the Klingons got their butt handed to them, and that's going to be something that it's going to be very difficult to come back from. A couple of key notes from what happens when your capital falls. You lose all your shipyards. So I had, for example, 2 cruiser slipways, 3 destroyer, 3 frigate slipways, and a battleship slipway. Sorry, not a battleship, a dreadnought slipway. And so That is a lot of EP that goes into building those. 10 EP per frigate, 15 per destroyer, 25 per cruiser slipway, and what was it, 45 or 40? I think it's 40 for each dreadnought slipway. So there was a lot of stuff that was lost there. Oh, excuse me, not 2 cruiser slipways, 1 cruiser slipway, because I had upgraded a cruiser slipway into a dreadnought slipway. So, but regardless, all the slipways are gone. It's going to take a long time to be able to build those back because of the amount of EP it costs. So major crippling. And of course, relocating the homeworld is a huge ordeal and makes things very difficult for the recovering faction, i.e. the Klingons, to be able to sort of get themselves back up and running. So huge pain in the butt one way or the other. Now, let's get into that big announcement at the end of the show. So this game has seen some very interesting sort of series of evolution of things. For example, we saw the Hydran faction sort of in the early game get taken out, which was dramatic to say the least. We saw shortly after that, we saw the Federation, or shortly before that, I should say, we saw the Federation and the Lyran factions leave the game. And in a game like this, and keeping in mind, we were talking about this before, this game has gone on for 20 months. 20 months, almost 2 years, certainly a little more than a year and a half, but that's a long time. And in the course of a game that long, things happen in life, for example. And of course, you know, any particular player's desire to continue playing the game. And so we have a framework or a set of rules whereby if a player leaves, we have the balkanization rules whereby the player will leave and their faction will sort of like become a non-player character to a certain degree, but not something that other players can just steamroll and take. And so it allows the game to continue to go, as opposed to if you have a player leave, all of a sudden everything just disappears. In this particular game, we saw the Federation and the Lyran player do that. They left, and we had the balkanization rules to be able to make that happen without disrupting, like absolutely destroying the game, and that sort of moved the whole thing forward. And good thing for the Remans, because they were in the middle of being attacked by the Lyrans, and the Lyrans were winning that fight, which was interesting. And how things changed as a result of that. But we saw life events, sort of real-world events, IRL events, impact the game. And we're at another point in this game where that's happening. So we have 2 players that will be leaving the game as a result of things they can't control happening in real life that are going to just impede their ability to play the game. And as a result, because they are the players for the ISC and the Reman factions, and if those 2 factions leave the game, who's left? It's the Carnarvon and the Klingons. Klingons just essentially got taken out. And the Carnarvon player is the only other player sort of up and running. Can they take everybody else out, as in the Tholians and the Gorn and the Romulans? The answer is no. And we had a discussion as far as the players after sort of this news kind of hit. We had like a powwow on our Discord channel. And as of today, what you've just seen here today is now the end of the game. And there's a number of different ways you can win a game like this. Attrition, meaning other players leave and you survive. There's metrics that we could use about fleet size or economy or various other things that you could use to be able to determine whether you're the victor of the game. But at the end of the day, I think it is fair to say that through a combination of patience, guile, strategic use of diplomacy, just overall sneakiness, and some fanatical tenacity, the winners of this game are soundly the Tholian, Romulan, and Gorn factions. They have, without a doubt, happily, soundedly won this game. So congratulations to the Tholians, the Romulans, the Gorn. You 3 have won Star Trek New Worlds this campaign. And this draws us to a close. Interesting to note, after 20 months of playing this game, we still have unexplored hexes on the map. We still have factions that really haven't bumped into each other too much. And there's so much more that could happen in this game. But the question is, as Bill is saying right now, did you have fun playing this game? And if you did, which I know I certainly did, then we all win, because at the end of the day, we play this game, we have this channel, we do what we do here so that we can all have fun and enjoy what we're doing. And so that I do have to call out one specific sort of accolade. So the Romulan player, Dave, started off this game without any experience in Federation Empire. And we've talked about many times how the rule book in this game is thick. It is like a Bible. It is so thick. There's so many nuances, so many issues, so much stuff in that rule book. And the Romulan player started off with knowing very little of it, and I would say made some very sort of classic newbie mistakes in the early game. However, as we've seen, the Romulan player is now one of the 3 players who won this game. And I would argue, based on his success, his excellent execution of his attack on me, and a number of sort of we've seen some sort of positioning and sort of detail in the way that he, as a player, constructed his orders to be able to be successful against me as a player. So I just want to call out the Romulan player as the most improved, or the MVP of the game, in the sense that he has done the most to go from learning the game to excelling at the game within this one game. And just a fantastic sort of rate of improvement and learning curve, just phenomenal from the Romulan player. But that being said, all players in this game are relatively new, with the exception of the Tholian player, myself. I think that's it. Everyone else is relatively new to this style of game, and so everybody was learning as we went. I even learned a couple things as we were playing the game, and just fun all the way around. So what happens now? So because this game is coming to an end, and we as a community are going to set about starting up our new game. How does that work? We are going to do the equivalent of a review and a retrospective on how this game is run. We're going to go over a bunch of rules and system tweaks or adjustments that we're going to make to improve the gameplay for the next game. Once we've done that, which should take about a week or two, we'll go through that process to be able to polish up and make it easier for players to not only enter the game, but also just like for references and gameplay overall. We'll make those improvements. And then once we're ready to launch the new game, we will make a trailer and start sort of the announcement on who wants to play. So what does that look like? As you have seen in the past, if you are subscribed to this channel and you have notifications on, you will see the trailer, recruitment trailer, that will be posted on this channel. There will be a sign-up sheet in the description of that video where you can sign up and indicate your interest to play the next game. Once that trailer comes out, it'll only be up for about 2 days, maybe. And then we're going to close the registration because, for example, in the last one that we ran, we reached capacity within like 24 hours. There's only so many players that we can facilitate in order to make the game fun for everyone. So if you're interested in playing this game, then make sure that you have subscribed to the channel, you have notifications on, and you see that video once it comes out. And once that video comes out, then we'll be taking in those registrations and we'll be starting up the new game. How many players will we be looking for or be able to accommodate in the next game? That's unclear at this time exactly, but chances are we're going to be looking for double digits, somewhere between 10 and 20, maybe more, players that we can accommodate. But we will see how that goes, and we haven't decided on what that's going to be for certain yet. Also, as a keynote, anyone who is a subscriber on our, anyone who is a supporter on Discord or Patreon gets first dibs or preferential dibs on being able to play in the next game. So if you Essentially, if you pay money to support this channel, then you get first crack at being able to play in this game, to partake in the fun that you are supporting. And that is only fair. So if you want to be in the next game, if you want to be considered front of the line, then make sure that you are over and you're part of our Discord and coffee tier on coffee, and that you can partake and be part of the discussions about starting up our new game. All right. So that's a lot, certainly, in this game. We are now coming up on an hour. What do you think? What are your reflections on the game and how things have gone? And I can see, for example, Eugene is asking, can we see the Juggy land uncovered before we leave? And we talked about that in the Discord channel. If you want to find out about whether or what was in the Juggy sort of center of the universe, that's a discussion that we'll have on the Discord channel. But I'll let you know, if we reveal it to you, then that's a secret, a gem, a treasure that we cannot use in another game necessarily, because we'll have already divulged the secrets behind that curtain. So we'll discuss it in Discord, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So with that said, thank you so much for everybody who has played the New Worlds campaign. For all of you who have joined us and watched as we go. We're at 334 subscribers, which, considering how niche-y this game is pretty phenomenal. But if you want to be able to see the next game from the start to the finish, from the excitement of the initial turn addiction, the exploration, the expansion, the exploitation of resources, and the extermination of the next game's enemies, then make sure that you subscribe to this channel, hit the notification so you can see when that trailer drops and when the next game comes out. I'll be very excited to see what this looks like, what our next iteration of the game is. And do you have any ideas about the themes that we should include? What kind of factions do you want? What kind of role-playing do you want to see? Are there certain kind of features of the game that you want to see included or not included, as the case may be? I can tell you right now, Orions are going to look very different, if anything, in the next game, just by example. So, with that said, I want to thank you all for joining us here today, for being part of this community. For those of you who are supporters and like Pinecone 333, thank you for subscribing to this channel and raising our numbers as much as we can. Our goal here is to grow this community so we can all play together, have fun together, and just enjoy Star Trek-y sci-fi, turn-based strategy stuff. That's what we do here. So thank you very much for all of you who participate and partake in that. For all of you who are joining us in the Discord channel after the end of this live stream, we will be discussing that review and retrospective, and I will see you there. And with that said, thank you so much. I will see you in the next video. You'll have to be subscribed and hit alerts to know when that's going to be. And I'll see you later. Bye for now.